To further discuss the battle for smartphone supremacy is Wayne Lamb, the senior analyst covering wireless communications for IHS iSuppli. He joins us now from our studios in LA. And with me here in San Francisco is Dieter Bohn, senior editor at The Verge. Gentlemen, welcome both of you to Bloomberg West. Dieter, let's start with you. How has Samsung been able to make this transition so much more quickly than Nokia?
Well, Samsung started sooner than Nokia. Nokia made its main transition to its new Windows Phone platform relatively late in the game, and unfortunately, by the time it started rolling them out, the smartphone revolution had already gotten started, and lots of carriers and lots of customers were looking for what was available and hot now, and Samsung was there. And
now they're trying to come in from behind. Wayne, Samsung, at least by this metric, is the one to beat. Should Apple be worried?
Well, actually, our IHS iSuppli research publication had had Samsung at 32 million smartphones, not beating Apple in Q1. So there is a difference in opinion in the analyst community, obviously. But I think to answer your question, Apple doesn't have that much to worry about at the moment. You have to remember that Apple's product line is one product, one OS, and one model. So it's very simple, it's very successful. Samsung has sort of canvassed the whole entire smartphone category, from really expensive high-end devices to really low-cost devices. So they're very different models, and if Apple would be worried, I would wait until they come up in the marketplace, become more of a volume player, and then perhaps if addressing more product segments, then it will be a different story.
So either way, depending on how you slice it, Samsung and Apple are sort of neck and neck. What about Google, though? Dieter, does Google have something to worry about?
I don't think so. I think that Google, they want Android to be successful, and they're perfectly happy to have Samsung be the big player there. They're trying to purchase Motorola, of course, and so we'll see if they start worrying about having their own skin in the hardware game. But for now, their main concern is selling advertising against the Android platform as a whole. So Samsung's success is Google's success.
But Samsung's obviously got more and more power now. What's keeping Samsung from building its own version of Android without Google, similar to what Amazon's doing with the Kindle?
It's a platform play, and I'm sure that Google is a little bit worried about that. But by the same token, the success of the Android platform is based in large part on Google's services, and Samsung isn't likely to want to get out of that.
Now, Wayne, Dieter mentioned the acquisition of Motorola Mobility, the pending acquisition of Motorola Mobility. Unclear how Google plans to integrate this company, but can we expect Samsung and other handset manufacturers to rebel?
That's a distinct possibility. When Google announced its intention to purchase Motorola, there's obviously they're building on this great platform with a lot of momentum behind it. However, it really depends on Motorola's market position. Right now, it's not a top tier player in terms of volume. So folks like Samsung aren't too concerned, but the acquisition hasn't played out. We haven't really seen the intent of Google. So if there is movement towards giving preferential treatment to Motorola, it does give other Android manufacturers pause when they move ahead. So that definitely gives opportunity to other platforms if indeed that happens.
So what about Nokia? I mean, they're not going away. They just came out with the Lumia 900, which is sold out at AT&T. Is it possible for Nokia to make a huge comeback, or at this point, is that just unlikely?
I think it's going to be really difficult for Nokia to make a huge, sudden comeback. I think that right now, Windows Phone as a platform doesn't have enough apps and doesn't have enough market share to be a real force. But there's a good chance that that could change with the next version. And more importantly, there's a good chance that carriers might like Windows Phone, the next version, more than they like it now. And if they decide to put their muscle, especially Verizon and the European carriers, behind the next version of Windows Phone, that could be a real boon for Nokia.
Predictions for smartphone market share this time next year?
I think that we're going to see a very large portion for iPhone and Android And if they're lucky, Windows Phone will be a third, maybe 10%.
Is it still going to be Samsung leading the Android charge?
I think there's a pretty good chance of that, yeah.
Okay. Wayne, how about you? This time next year, how's it going to stack up? Samsung versus Apple versus Nokia?
I think it's going to be a neck-and-neck race through the rest of the year with Samsung and Apple in terms of smartphones. But in terms of the overall platform, I think we'll see a viable third platform emerging in the end of the year towards the early part next year.
Well, we do know Verizon at least has hinted at supporting Microsoft and Nokia and their Windows phones. But Wayne Lam of IHS iSuppli, Dieter Bohn of The Verge, thanks so much for joining us here on Bloomberg West.